This is News at 8.
Now, thank you for joining us on this very special edition of the Primetime News. Coming up, Ghana marks the first anniversary of the passing of late President Mills with a wreath-laying ceremony at Asumdwe Park where his mortal remains lie. There were similar events held for the late president in the various regional capitals. Meanwhile, here in Accra, while some observed a minute's silence at 2:15 p.m. to mark the exact time the president died, others chose to mark it in their own way. In other news, the Upper West Region Police, at a meeting with the political parties, has warned it will deal ruthlessly with anyone who attempts to foment trouble over the Supreme Court ruling on the election petition. And for those who can't do without their earphones, there's a health warning. You risk becoming deaf from their prolonged use. We also have business, sports, showbiz, and a special collection of bouts of humor from our late president, all coming up.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
Now, various political party leaders in the Ashanti region are calling on Ghanaians to use the one-year anniversary of the late President Atta Mills to seek peace and unity. They say the late president's desire for peace must be sustained even after the Supreme Court verdict. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin sent in this report.
Special prayers were observed for the soul of the late Professor Atta Mills by Captain Reverend Gustafson Asamoah. The Ashanti Regional Minister Eric Opoku stated the late Mills consistently showed compassion to the less privileged and vulnerable in the Ghanaian society. He said the late president's legacy of transparency, tolerance, grace and integrity made him one of the finest presidents. The Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly Mayor Kojo Bonsu noted the late president exemplified humility and leadership and gave practical meaning to the political virtues of integrity and accountability. He said Atta Mills was committed to the socio-economic development of Ghana. Chairman of the NDC in the Ashanti region, Yao Obimpe, also spoke about the desire of the late president to achieve total peace and stability. Ashanti Regional Chairman of the NPP, Frederick Freduanto, invoked the spirit of the late president to guide the Supreme Court judges in their decision of the election petition. 4 wreaths were laid by the regional minister, KMA boss, Otumfuo's representative, Northern Commander of the Ghana Armed Forces, and the Regional Coordinating Council.
Now, the Western Regional Minister, Ebenezer Kwejote Ado, has called on Ghanaians to learn useful lessons from the life of the late Professor John Evans Atta Mills to guide Ghana's political future. He made the call during a wreath-laying ceremony at the Jubilee Park in Takoradi to mark the first anniversary of the death of President Mills. Western Regional Correspondent William Benjamin Peters has more.
The solemn ceremony was graced by the presence of some traditional authorities, clergy and security forces, political authorities in the region, metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives, as well as the general public. They turned up in their numbers to grace the solemn ceremony at the Jubilee Park. The Metropolitan Chief Executive for Sekondi Takoradi, Captain Retired Anthony Kujo, in his address said the demise of Professor Mills came as a surprise, which sent shockwaves throughout the length and breadth of the country and the world. He read a brief tribute in honor of late Professor Mills.
Somebody whispered to me only yesterday, and I think that the skies are so clear with a message that even the heavens express the solemnity, the profound calmness and sobriety of the character of Professor Mills.
The Western Regional Minister Ebenezer Kwadwo Ado encouraged Ghanaians to honor the late president by reflecting on his character and achievements and learn useful lessons to guide Ghana's political future. 4 wreaths were laid in honor of the late president. The band then sounded the bugle sound, or the last post, to climax the event.
Now, the first anniversary ceremony went ahead peacefully thanks to security officers who were present in their numbers. Both the military and police were successfully maintaining order before, during and after the ceremony.
As expected of every national event that attracts foreign dignitaries and important personalities, there was heavy security presence at the Asomdwe Park. Clad in riot and SWAT gears, Accra Regional Police PRO Freeman Tete noted they came fully prepared to handle any situation.
We normally put solid operational plans in place, expecting a crowd that could be calm or could be unruly. And then fortunately for us, we were able to manage this crowd that has been very calm. It has been a very peaceful and a very calm crowd. We raised about 300 plus. Uniform and non-uniform police personnel, not only to control crowd but also to direct traffic.
Though the venue could not accommodate the countless citizens who had thronged the Asomdwe Park, people still found a way to be part of the remembrance ceremony. After the dignitaries had departed, there was a bit of commotion at the graveside. As people rushed to take photographs, the military had to come in to restore order. The crowd was instructed to form a queue and then finally were allowed to pose beside the grave in tents for photographs.
Well, that was Accra. Now, the youth of Brong-Ahafo region have praised the late President John Evans Atta-Mills for introducing relatively young people into his government. This, they say, is the greatest legacy of the late president.
My appeal is that we should ensure that this campaign is carried out in a clean manner. My brothers and sisters who are gathered here,
the President of the Republic of Ghana, Professor John Evans Atta-Mills.
The President of Ghana, John Atta-Mills, has died.
President Mills has paid the ultimate price for this country.
The late president's one-year anniversary was not as widespread as the main funeral. At exactly 2:15 p.m., party faithful of the NDC converged at the Atechiman office to mark the anniversary. They were clad in traditional funeral attire. Some policemen who were directing traffic at the time of observing the 1-minute silence stood attention.
Professor Mills would have wished that if it was him, he would have always been preaching peace. But that is the same way President John Dramani Mahama is preaching. He's also humble like Professor Mills was peaceful. So the NDC, it looks as if the way we used to perceive things has changed dramatically.
Our cameras also captured these broadcasters and security personnel in Techiman engaging themselves in a football competition to commemorate the day and to promote what Professor Mills stood for.
Now, it all happened a year ago, in the afternoon of the 24th of July 2012. Let's take you back to the days after the death of the president, right until he was laid to rest at Asomdwe Park near the Christian Book Castle in Accra, having been honored with a mammoth burial service attended by heads of states of 18 countries from across the world.
For 3 days, Ghanaians from all walks of life filed past the body of the late president. This was after President Mahama, Vice President Imisatha, Widow Nadu Mills, and several dignitaries had taken turns to pay their last respect to the departed president. The military had lost their commander-in-chief. Over 50,000 Ghanaians filled the Independence Square to bid farewell to a man they had as president, loved as a leader, and admired as a true statesman. And soon, Ghanaians would part with their president. The funeral cortege from the Independence Square to the Assembly Park was mobbed by many. Assembly Park is the final resting place of President John Evans Atta Mills. For 3.5 years, the late President Mills ruled Ghana, and his sudden departure shocked many.
Now, a wreath-laying ceremony here in Accra has been held in remembrance of late President Mills at Asumdwe Park. President John Mahama used the occasion to call on Ghanaians to weigh the impact of their deeds on the country as a way of honoring the memory of late President Mills.
It happened to be the most discussed and anticipated event of the month. Gradually, dignitaries and other invited guests took their seat. Notable amongst them, former President Jerry Rawlings, widow of the late President Dr. Nadu Mills, accompanied by Vice President Kwesi Amissah-Arthur, and finally, the President John Dramani Mahama. Bible verses were recited and hymns sung intermittently. A 2-minute silence was observed, after which 7 wreaths were laid. It began with the President on behalf of all Ghanaians, the widow Dr. Nadu Mills for herself, and Dr. Kadman Mills for the late President's family, including his son. The Speaker of Parliament, Do Ajaho, laid a wreath on behalf of Parliament, and the Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Georgina Theodora Wood, on behalf of the judiciary, Rear Admiral Matthew Kwashi for the Ghana Armed Forces, and finally, Ni King Kadowona for the people of Osu, who own the land on which Professor Mills has been buried. President Mahama spoke of the impact of the death on him and the entire country a year ago.
I recollect vividly, as if it were only just yesterday, the emotional breakdown that I suffered upon hearing the news. Our nation, Africa, and indeed the entire world was thrown into a state of mourning and grief. A grief that was so intense that it shook the very foundation of our land. It cast a dark cloud over our country and set the hearts of all Ghanaians bleeding with shock and sorrow. I implore all Ghanaians, especially the youth, that we should continue to be inspired by this great man and resolve to be instruments of positive social change in our country. In everything we do, let us ask ourselves what the impact of our actions or inactions will be on our nation and our fellow citizens. In doing so, we shall be doing honor to the memory of our departed President, Professor John Evans Atta Mills.
He called the moment a time to be rededicated to what the late President stood for, peace, despite the sarcasm he got in return.
On the occasion of the first anniversary of his death, I stand before you, my fellow Ghanaians, to rededicate ourselves to the many things that the late Professor John Evans Atta Mills stood for. Peace, social justice, building a country of a united people devoid of deep-seated partisan interests, being a father for all, and developing Ghana into a country of equal opportunities without regard to partisan, tribal, religious, or any other considerations.
After the President's departure, former President Rawlings paid his last respect at the tomb of President Mills.
We're taking a break, but we have more stories coming up. Don't go away. Now, various political parties have described as solemn the ceremony marking 1 year since the passing of Professor John Evans Atta Mills. Some members of political parties noted the solemn ceremony was a true reflection of Professor Mills' nature.
was a very solemn, simple yet profound occasion, and it reflects the nature of the man himself. Because President Mills wasn't one for elaborate ceremonies. Neither was he a person who would want you to be over exuberant in doing things. You know, he was a very simple person.
The qualities of Professor Mills, I think that is not cannot be compared to any leader at the moment. He has all the qualities that one can think of. They are very rare of this kind of person. And some of us are taking inspiration from his leadership style. And we believe that many of us here, among us and the youth coming up, will learn to understand his political lifestyle. And I think that they should write a book on Professor Mills, right from his childhood until now, all the qualities, the advantages and disadvantages of Professor Mills.
He left behind some virtues. He was humble, he was a modest politician, he showed respect to his political opponent. For us, I think that the greatest legacy we can pay to the professor's memory is that we must eschew corruption and conduct a selfless political life, because that is the only way that we can determine the public good and do exploits for the majority of our people who are considered unfortunate.
The brothers and sisters, we are not hearing that again. And he was a fine gentleman. He had good intentions for this country, looking like the way he wanted to transform the educational sector, trying to put 2 universities, one in the Bronx and the one in my hometown, Volta region. My brothers and sisters, that is what he kept and constantly repeat. And also the way he blend his speeches with words from the scriptures, and it's also something that I've missed so much.
The daily media briefing at the presidency today was dedicated to the memory of late President Mills. Information and Media Relations Minister Mama Yariga spoke at length about Mills' attributes and his vision of a better Ghana.
Today's media briefing has been dedicated to remembering the professor.
A lot has been said about Professor Mills, and whichever way you look at it from, he was clearly an exceptional man, very exceptional. A man who taught us, the younger generation of politicians who worked with him, the virtues of honesty and integrity in public life. I find him an exceptionally strong person. As spokesperson, every morning, myself, Koku Idoho, and others had the opportunity almost every morning to be with him and to observe him take in the insults and the attacks on his person as president, the deliberate misrepresentation of issues and the efforts to tarnish his image and reputation. And he was exceptional, the way that he received these reports and his efforts to ensure that he gets to the truth of every matter that comes before him. We definitely will miss him.
Few hours away from now, a year ago, the whole nation was thrown into a state of tears. They mourned for a president who died working for the country. And as the weather had been back then, the weather appears to be remembering the professor alongside with Ghanaians. Is it just a coincidence or a phenomenon that should be left for the superstitious to explain? Gifty Andopia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
Now, even though Ghanaians were expected to remember the late President Mills with a minute of silence at 2:15 p.m., market women at the Rawlings Park in Accra chose to dance on the streets, causing a traffic hold-up in the process. Some, however, paid their respects in a solemn way, whilst others just did not seem to care. Matilda Nyakwadene says more.
The mood at the Rawlings Park in Accra did not depict that of solemnity. These women chose to dance off their sorrow in remembrance of late President Mills. They did not seem to care as drivers honked loudly, expecting them to give way. With her mic, Ama Banfua kept announcing to the drivers that it was a sorrowful day when they chose to remember President Mills. The atmosphere was, however, solemn at the Kwasi Adwoaso when we arrived there. But for small radio players the women listened to, one would have thought they did not know what was happening in Ghana. However, at exactly 2:15 p.m., they began shouting the name of Professor Mills in sorrow.
Don't say anything. The good Lord is with you.
Babi Aidu told us God will deal harshly with Ghanaians for hastening the death of President Mills if there is no repentance.
The good Lord will never forgive us, Ghanaians. I'm betting you. What we did to contribute to his demise, the Lord will never forgive us. In fact, I could remember when he was he had the chance of winning the election. The moment he won the election, this language came out. Odiano wuye, Odiano wuye. The president really died. Ghanaians should be very careful. Otherwise, if the good Lord starts cursing us, we will never become what we should be.
Other traders also shared their views with Joy News.
It's not a selfish. If they always say Atamis Amambo Bonnie and this Amambo Bonnie, Atamis Amambo Bonnie. I know that they didn't say anything. That's why I love the man. It's always a peace. He loves everybody. Ghana, they give the mic to us, but we didn't respect him. So God will take him away.
I chanced upon these school children and asked one of them, Ramatu, whether she knew what the day meant for Ghanaians. She told me Ghanaians were remembering President Mills, but she had an interesting answer about how he died.
He had a heart attack. They were saying it.
There was heavy traffic on most of the streets in Accra, but interestingly, the Atta Mills High Street, which was named after late President Fifi Atta Mills, was less busy and quiet, as if paying a silent tribute.
President Mills is remembered by many for different reasons. Today, as we celebrate the first anniversary of his passing, we bring you some clips of moments when our president cracked us up with his great sense of humor. My brothers and sisters, enjoy.
In fact, before I came here, I expected to be heckled because it's a usual routine. But let me say, Madam Speaker, that I did not expect the heckling to be so gargantuan. Our economy is resilient. Madam Speaker, when you are pronouncing such figures in billions, and I want to remind you that I didn't even know how to translate them into OPPPP.
There is this thing going round that you are working towards the removal of the Chief Justice. How true is that rumor, and do you have any such intention to work for the removal of the Chief Justice? Thank you.
Please stay where you are. Look at my face very carefully. Listen to my voice. Do I look and sound like a cat hunter? we should ensure that this campaign is carried out in a clean manner. My brothers and sisters who are gathered here,
the President
of the Republic of Ghana, Professor John Evans Atta Mills.
The President of Ghana, John Atta Mills, has died.
President Mills has paid the ultimate price for this country.
Now, in other news, ahead of the Supreme Court ruling on the ongoing election petition, the Upper West Police Command has warned that it will deal ruthlessly with anyone seeking to foment trouble in the region for political gain. At a meeting with political parties to sensitize them on the Supreme Court ruling, the regional commander, ACP Kwesi Mensah Duku, appealed for total acceptance no matter the outcome. Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
The Supreme Court in the next few weeks would pronounce judgment on the historic election petition, and according to the Upper West Regional Police Commander, ACP Kwesi Mensah Duku, there are fears that many people would like to take the law into their own hands by trying to disturb the peace in the region. As security officers, he said they are ready to quell such plans, but needed the support of the political parties to achieve that.
Let the supporters be aware that the verdict is going to be given by the highest court authority in the land. And they are honorables, and I believe the verdict that they are going to give is going to reflect the true state of affairs of the elections. So let everybody educate them that, sensitize them that they have to accept the outcome of what our able and honorable men are going to offer.
ACP Mensah Duku disclosed that a series of simulation exercises would be held in the region for officers and men to prepare them for any eventuality emanating from the Supreme Court ruling. Upper West Regional Vice Chairman of the NPP, Hafiz bin Salih, and NDC Regional Organizer Adams Isahaku, respectively, agreed on behalf of their parties to work with the police to achieve peace after the Supreme Court judgment.
I think that must be condemned, because when you do that, you provoke your opponents. In this particular case, we don't know where the pendulum will swing to. So all of us must take precautionary measures.
We of the NDC are assuring the Regional Police Command that our supporters, we know, are always up to taking the words from our party top herald.
Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam filed this report from WA.
Now, earphones are so convenient whether for listening to music or talking on the phone. For many, it's one of the most useful of all the inventions. There's, however, the danger that you could go deaf from prolonged use. Stay tuned as the audiologist gives us some education about when the use of the earphone is too much. Esther Madugu has been speaking to him.
There are various reasons why people love earphones. This young man, for instance, follows the election petition through his earpiece.
I started using this, earpiece a couple of weeks ago. Because of these cost issues, I don't want to mix even one day, you know what I'm saying? So I always listen using the earpiece.
Others for business updates.
I'm a marketer. I'm always on the move, and maybe I'll have to listen to news. That's the essence of using my earpiece.
For most people, though, it's for listening to radio and music from their mobile phones. There are those too who are driven to the use of the earpiece because of the apparent danger associated with speaking on mobile phones. The earphone was first invented by Nathaniel Baldwin in 1881 as a headset. It, however, caught on in a more convenient size in 2001 with the invention of the MP3 player. But the ear specialist is warning it is the quickest way for one to become deaf.
The negative effect is that the sound is not entering the middle ear direct. As I talk to you, the sound is emanating from my lips and my mouth and it's traveling right there. So the quickest way to become deaf is to use those gadgets.
Most people, though, seem to be aware of the dangers, but say the use of the earphone cannot be avoided. So much so that they can stay on their earphones the whole day.
Maybe till my phone goes off.
8 hours.
For drivers, the ban on the use of mobile phones whilst driving makes the earpiece a wonderful option.
It helps you driving easily. You are like this, when the traffic is red like this, you can pick and talk to the person. Yeah, unlike holding the handset, which will disturb you. When there is green, you can't change because of the other hand holding the phone.
But how does one know if they are almost becoming deaf?
One of the symptoms may be noise in the ear. Perception of noise in the ear, Okay, that's tinnitus. The thing is that the person then notices that his hearing is a bit getting dull.
He offers some advice.
Prevention is key because, as I told you, there's no medication to revive a dying organ of hearing from noise. So prevention is the key. Awareness. Now we want to spread the news that noise is injurious. We already have burden of deafness in Ghana. We don't want to add more to it.
So, great as it is, minimal use and at low volumes is advised.
Joy News Business is brought.
The producer price inflation for June is 7%, down from the 8.3% in May. Government statistician Dr. Philomena Nyako attributes this to a decrease in inflation in manufacturing, which constitutes more than 2/3 of total industry. Producer price inflation is an advanced indicator of consumer price inflation.
The Producer Price Index measures the average change over time in the prices received by domestic producers for the production of the goods and services. The June figure represents a decrease in producer price inflation by 1.3 percentage points relative to the rate recorded in May 2013, which was 8.3%.
In 2013, when it recorded a negative inflation of 1.9%. In June 2013, however, the rate increased slightly to record negative 1.4% as a result of the increase in good prices on the world market.
The PPI for the mining and quarrying subsector, however, increased by 0.5 percentage points over the May figure. The utilities subsector, which is water and electricity, remained virtually unchanged.
Singapore has opened a new investment bureau in Accra to boost its investments in Ghana and West Africa. The private sector is expected to partner Singapore in the manufacturing sector as well as the development of offshore oil rigs. Marianne Ture, what's at the launch?
The opening of the Ghana office comes just 6 months after the agency inaugurated its first trade office in Johannesburg in January. CEO of International Enterprise Singapore, Teo Wing Chang, said Ghana was chosen as the most preferred destination because it is amongst the top 10 foreign direct investment destinations in sub-Saharan Africa, and Ghana is a key gateway to the West African sub-region.
Ghana's location also provides easy access to major economies such as Ivory Coast, Niger, and Nigeria. There are today close to 30 Singapore companies in Ghana in sectors such as agri-commodities, logistics and infocom technology. We hope to see this number increase given the many opportunities for Singapore and Ghana to work together. The signings today between the public and private sectors reflect the potential in a close partnership as Ghana develops.
Singaporean Senior Minister of State Lee Yin-shan, who represented his government, said even though Ghana and Singapore are situated in two different geographies of Africa and Asia, today's global economy offers great opportunities to work closely for mutual benefit. The Minister of Trade, Haruna Idrisu, was optimistic that the launch of this new center would improve trade ties between Ghana and Singapore for mutual benefit.
Now, when Ghana's sitting president passed on last year, a lot of businesses cashed in on this sad event, raking some profit by flooding the market with memorabilia, including funeral cloths in different colors and designs. A year on, my colleague Marian Ture has been to the Central Business District to find out the impact of the one-year commemoration of his death on the textile business, and has filed this report.
Going through the Central Business District from the fire service station through to Mokola Market to the Rollins Park area, it was difficult to get hold of this black and white commemorative cloth. Each trader I went to said they had taken stock of the prints about 3 weeks ago, but each time they restocked, the textile sold out like hot cake. Madam Ekuyasewa believes the high patronage is because of what Professor Attamills stood for.
Papa no don't see money toy, and the black and the brown who don't see it, stay and the Sassan so and the one and the white and the beam. They are short about black and the view.
As these traders explain, Professor Mills is still good for business, judging from patronage.
I'm having the old one. Okay. But the new one has finished. Somewhere last week.
Since last week, I was having it, yeah. But as at now, I don't have.
How much is it going
for 60 cities for 6 years, and 110 for full piece. But at the moment, there is none. And people are patronized, they are coming.
I have been through one shop to the next, and the black and white cloth that was printed almost 3 weeks ago to commemorate the one-year celebration of the death of President John Attamills is out of the market. This then goes to show that President Mills's death 1 year on is still good for business. Ghanaians still remember. For Joy News, Marian Ture reporting from Rollins Park.
Now, late former President John Attamills was a key player in building a resilient economy even before he entered into politics. For those in the business community, the late president will be forever remembered for his efforts to improve the conditions of workers and his general commitment to strengthening the fundamentals of the economy. Abigail Adumakwinchi spoke to some economic stakeholders.
For 6 years as the commissioner, Professor Mills sat on this very desk. I'm sitting in this very room, and administered the then Internal Revenue Service. Key among the unique characteristics of the man was his simplicity. He demystified the position of the Chief Executive of the Internal Revenue Service. He was part of the team that gave birth to VAT, and in fact, a lot of the policies we are pursuing now, even with respect to integration of the revenue agencies now into one authority, have the seats sown by him when he was the commissioner of the then Internal Revenue Service. And back to his role in the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators, it is also the platform that he presented for CATA, the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators, to link more closely with the country, which eventually have culminated in Ghana holding the presidency of the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators now.
You know, the single spine salary structure, the new salary structure, the process began in 2006. And when they came to power, there was an attempt to say no or to have an abrupt end of it. And of course, that was when the old government was leaving. But eventually, when we had an engagement and explained the consequences involved, they considered and had a single spine discussion moving on.
Joy News Business.
Sports is brought to you in association with
Time for the very latest in the world of sports. The maiden edition of the Cowbell National Junior Athletics Championship was launched at the Media Center of the Crossport Stadium this afternoon. A three-day event is scheduled to take place from the 8th to 10th of August 2013. 10 teams will take part in 18 competitions, with the first 3 athletes receiving a full year's scholarship. Acting Director of the National Sports Authority, Elizabeth Otipo, and President of the Ghana Athletics Association, Professor Dodu, have been commending Promasidor Ghana Limited for the initiative.
I don't know what has happened. It looks as if corporate Ghana doesn't see the need to come and support athletics anymore, and so the athletes are not having that needed assistance to give off their best. So I'm glad that Promasidor has found it necessary. We are the National Sports Authority will partner with GES to ensure that this project that is being started now will come to fruition, and it will be used to unearth talents for the nation.
I, like all of you, concede that the Olympic Games, we didn't put out what we should have as a country or what everybody expects us to. But again, for me, it's been an issue of we really need to start developing the next generation of athletes. And this is why I'm so excited today, because Promasidor coming in and deciding to do this at the basic school level means we're really starting where the pipeline starts. I would like to pray that Promasidor will also consider maybe in a year or two also taking on the senior high school level, because there's one thing that I didn't espouse about the benefits of athletics. It provides role models for a lot of youth, even youth who don't participate in sports. And so when we finally are able to sort of complete or exhaust the whole food chain, if I may use that term, I think that Ghana athletics will be back where it is.
Let's switch to sports and do some sports and some football now. And Communications Director of the Ghana Football Association, Ibrahim Sanidar, says the Black Stars are fine-tuning preparations amidst financial difficulty ahead of the final World Cup qualifier against Zambia in Kumasi. Sanidar spoke to Joy Sports.
We are in financial difficulty as the FA itself. We are in great financial difficulty to pay salaries of workers and lots of other things that we go, referees, people who sit on our committees, our work itself, and all of those things. We are under huge financial pressure. But we want to get things right. We want to get the results. And you have to keep your best brains. If we want to keep our best brains, we must give them what they need, what can make them comfortable to be able to stay, and impart the knowledge that they've had. And I bet when we get to the point, we'll find something decent to give to Mr. Tete. In preparing for Zambia, for the match against Zambia, soon we'll be announcing an opponent for August, a friendly match in August. Soon we'll be announcing that. And then before that, the coach has already started his work.
That'll be all for sports tonight. My name is George Addy Jr. Have a great night.
Sports was brought to you in association with
Now, the showbiz world is full of controversies, but the controversies are more pronounced in situations where there are competitions, like the recently held Miss Ghana beauty pageant. Although the judges settled on a 22-year-old accounting student, some patrons think her runner-up rather deserved the crown.
Apart from the pulsating performances from Sherry Falgunu, High Life Kuna Kwabna Kwabna, saxophonist Steve Beddy and Miss World 2012 Weng Jiayu, the 2013 edition of the Miss Ghana pageant was also used to auction some items, including a piano and a badge presented to Weng Jiayu by Queen Elizabeth. The auction was to raise funds to renovate the children's block of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. But not all patrons were pleased with the organization of the nation's foremost beauty pageant. Some complained about the long breaks and the judges' choice of a beauty queen. Interestingly, 3 out of the 5 judges on the panel that night were past winners of the Miss Ghana pageant. Some patrons who spoke to Showbiz thought Margaret Kumaminta, the first runner-up, deserved the crown.
They cheated. The reason being that this girl was not part of the top 20 to start with. She was brought in because someone got dropped. And then from nowhere, she's being trained. If you ask any of the contestants, they know that she was being trained. She was Ina's favorite. Just for her to be the queen, I don't think she didn't even have a beauty with the purple. She doesn't have a star, she doesn't have anything, and she's Miss Ghana. This is so political.
But Margaret, it appears, had no qualms about the judge's decision.
Well, I said.
Right, that'll be all for the bulletin. Before we go, Ghana marked the first anniversary of the passing of the late President Mills with a Wreath laying ceremony at Asumdwe Park, where his mortal remains lie. There were similar events held for the late president in the various regional capitals. Meanwhile, here in Accra, while some observe